got to celebrate it. You gotta make sure that you treasure it. Schooling life, forget the nonsense. It's irrelevant. Be what you put your mind to. You could be the president. Greatness you achieve for your people, you gotta represent.
It goes up, up, and away, yeah. Today's the best day ever, you're off and on your way. Up, up, and away, yeah. We parlay in the morning, we party throughout the day. Up, up, and away, yeah. Up, up, underlay, yeah. Up, up, and away, yeah. Schooling like the only way.
I'm your host, Casey Williams. Welcome to another episode of Schooling Life. Today, I'm going to be talking to educators and what school has been like during the virtual experience. So thank you two beautiful ladies for joining me today for this segment.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, you are more than welcome. It truly is a pleasure. Well, the people need to know you all's names.
I am Ashley Curtis. I have been teaching for about 9 years in Clayton County. I teach middle school language arts.
I am Ashley Williams. I've been teaching for 7 years in DeKalb County, and I teach 7th grade math.
All right. So, what brought you guys to the field of education? Like, what made you a teacher?
For me, I've always wanted to be an educator. And I use the word educator instead of teacher because I think it's two different things. But for me, I remember being very, very young, and I loved Barbie dolls. I would just be in my room, and I would just have my Barbie dolls, and I would just think they were students, and I would be teaching them and talking to them. And ever since then, I just had a love for educating and teaching. So from a little girl, that's all I've ever wanted to do. My parents used to say, "It won't pay you any money, it won't get you any money," but I've always had the passion. I just always knew that I wanted to be an educator.
My story is very similar to Miss Curtis. I've always wanted to be a teacher, an educator. I use that word as well. Since I was like 7 or 8 years old, I'm the only child, so I used to really teach no one. It would just be me in a room and my pencil and my paper and me just talking to the walls. But I wanted to be a teacher. Or if my cousins were over, I used to play school with them. Mm-hmm. But when I expressed that to my mother, ever since then, with her being a single mom, she made sure that she did everything in her power to put me on that path to be the educator that I always wanted to be. So that's the passion that I always had. And I think part of the reason too was because my mom made education a priority in the household. Like that's one thing she did not play about were grades and school. So she just made me love school to the point where I wanted to share that love with other children as I grew up.
I guess I'll share my story too. I definitely have a very similar story. I would actually resource my school books at the end of the school year when they would, collect the books. Mm-hmm. I would resource them by getting 2 extra ones plus the one I already had, and I would, just bring books so that I would have enough for my brother and sisters or my cousins whenever they came over, so that everybody could have a book and I could have, my own teacher's edition.
Right.
Yeah. So
a little mini home library.
Right.
So that I could, educate them, because that was something that we used to do too, play in school. Right. And I've known from a very early age that I would be an educator. Right. And I remember even in college, I would make the statement that I was going to reform education in America. And I really didn't even know what that meant. But as I am starting to just trust my gut and move from the standpoint of faith and self-belief, it is really revolutionizing and changing my life.
Right.
So we know this pandemic experience has been interesting.
Whew, to say the least.
Right. We all will sigh. First off, let's just check in. How are you? How are you?
For the most part, I'm pretty good. I just make sure that I cater more to my emotional care, because I never knew how much. I always knew that it was important to take care of your emotions, your mind, make sure you're feeding your mind the right things, and just make sure you're emotionally prepared before you start teaching. But being in the virtual learning environment, I feed more into my emotional well-being even more so now, because it can be draining, and I mean draining, teaching from that from that computer all day long and trying to meet so many needs without actually being able to physically see the kids or physically touch them. So one thing that I always do is just make sure that my emotional foundation is where it needs to be so that I can actually reach these children like I'm supposed to every day. So self-care is very important for me.
Oh, good.
I definitely share the same sentiments. I'm okay, but I think I'm okay because of the type of person that I am. I've always been strong-minded and independent, and whatever's happening around me that may be negative or daunting or, you know, tough, I'm still able to push through. So because I've always been that in nature, I'm okay. However, it is still very, very difficult to, like Ashley said, kind of still make sure you take care of yourself. I just noticed even with virtual, I would just start taking walks. I don't walk. I barely exercise, but I had to walk and meditate and just get out the house because it's different versus the brick and mortar versus virtual. You know, when you leave the building, you're done.
Right.
But when you're at home, it's like work is never ending. So you have to shut down. You have to have that mental break. So taking care of yourself, like Ashley said, is very important. And we do SEL, social emotional learning, for teachers as well as students. And I think that's very, very important. And I think all counties should do that because it allows not only the students, but the teachers need some kind of release, mental release as well. So we have to actually, with Clayton County, take social emotional learning modules monthly. So just to kind of check in and make sure we're okay. So because of that, and just kind of learning myself and, you know, like I said, walking, exercising, taking those mental breaks, I'm okay.
I would say I am learning. I'm growing. This is a new experience, and so I'm just literally observing, like what is coming up during this particular time, and I'm just attentive to my emotionality, you know, my mentality, and you know, things that are kind of arising during this unique experience, and so it has been shifting.
Definitely.
It has shifted my priorities as it has shifted everyone's priorities.
Right.
So, you guys kind of already talked about how you're taking care of yourself, but how do you see the pandemic shifting the educational culture? Like, what do you think this crisis, how do you think it is going to affect the landscape of teaching? Particularly,
Well, for one, education will never be the same after this pandemic, and traditional schooling is out of the window. I just think that this pandemic has forced all stakeholders to get hands-on versus before when we was in a traditional school. It's easy for a parent to drop their child off and to put everything on the teacher, pick their child up, and call it a day. But now it is forcing parents and everyone, you know, around them to get hands-on and get involved, because it goes back to, you know, the parent is the first teacher, and it always goes back to the home environment plays a very important role on how your child learns, because we can teach all day long, but at the end of the day, the child still has to go back home, and their learning environment still needs to take place for the child to continue to be successful. So right now, it's just forcing the parents to get more involved and to get more hands-on. And it's creating an environment where the kids have to get ready for this is the 21st century. So being that we're in the 21st century, teaching needs to be 21st century. The tools we're using need to be 21st century tools. And that's what everything is changing. The workforce is changing. You know, jobs are never going to be the same. Technology is taking over jobs now. So the kids are going to have to adjust to this new digital world, because this is the world that they are going to be living in. And it's not going to go back to where it was.
Okay.
A couple things. I think for one, as far as all stakeholders, I think that the value of education is definitely going to be looked at different. Right. I think how education has been looked at in the past, and teachers have not really gotten, you know, praised or felt worthy. I think that it has been a definite shift in how the world values us as educators. And it feels good to even look on Instagram and see memes and parents saying, how y'all do this? Y'all need to get a raise. That feels good to me, because now you see it sucks that it had to be this way.
Right.
But I think that we're going to be looked at as a more profound profession. And I feel like we are trendsetters. We are teaching souls. And I think across the world, hopefully the trajectory of the teacher will change, and I feel like we're more valued. As far as the students, I think, like Ashley said, as far as the technology and them getting more hands-on with that, is definitely going to be a change. And not just with the academics. I think for me, when I first started teaching, it was all about teaching the content, language arts, social studies. But now, social skills and being able to, because honestly, all my kids don't come to virtual class.
Right.
So I kind of try to maximize on, okay, I'm teaching my language arts, but also what else how else can I get to these kids? You know, how can I teach some kind of personal skills? How can I teach some kind of social skills? Because education, like Ashley said, is moving more digitally. You know, when they go to school, they have online classes. So just trying to teach outside of the box now, and not just, okay, this is language arts, but let's get more deep, because I don't remember being in school and ever learning how to talk to somebody.
Right.
I don't remember ever being in school and really learning how to write an email,
Right.
send an email, submit anything online. So I think it's just allowing the teachers to kind of just expand and expose the kids to more than that science, social studies, math. It's allowing us to be open-minded, and also not just focus on the test.
The content.
The content. Life is so much bigger than that. You can get further along with your social skills and your people skills versus what you know as far as academics. And I'm just an avid believer in just kind of teaching outside of the four walls of the classroom, and in our case, teaching outside, or exposing them beyond the lens of the camera or beyond the lens of the laptop.
Two very strong points. And we talk about the role of teachers and the potential to shift the climate. However, this is also exposing the importance of learning in person. Because regardless of what the virtual experience is, there is something that is transmuted from being in the presence and being touched, being shifted by the beings of people.
Embracing of something.
So what do you guys think this shift looks like? Like what do you think, where do you think it goes? Because we definitely know that we're moving into an AI generation, but where is the balance?
I think already our kids are behind, because they're so into social media and so into not having conversations at the dinner table. They're so into playing games and not talking to mom and dad or aunt or grandma or sister about their day. They're already so isolated, or not even talking. So now that we don't see them, because those are our babies, we see them more than their parents or their guardians do. So because we're not getting those 8 hours a day to hug and kiss and talk and ask about their day, I wonder that it's just gonna even bridge the gap even more, because they're already, most of them, not really getting any type, and God forbid, the type of situations they're at home. They're already maybe not getting any hugs or loves or how was your day. So now that they're not getting that from their favorite teachers or their favorite counselors or their principal, I just think it's just gonna bridge the gap even more.
I feel like, and I agree with Ashley in that area, the kids were already, I learned this word in my course that I'm taking, but they're called digital natives, because they were born into this digital society. And some of the teachers are what we call digital immigrants who were not. So with that being said, it's kind of like we have to meet in the middle. We have to find a way to reach the kids based off the ways that they are attracted, according to their interests. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, wherever it is, we can make those tools educational tools. We can flip those to not being so just used for social purposes, but used for educational purposes as well. So it's kind of like, we have to be able to meet them in the middle to be able to reach them where they are as well, because we are living in a digital society. So, and then it goes back to, yes, those kids, they do need that, a lot of the kids do need that in-person touch. However, that's why as educators, we have to get creative to come up with methods and ways that we can still reach those kids virtually. Because like Ashley said, we now we have to veer away from the content and tune into social and emotional health. So like before you even get started teaching math, going over your bell ringer for the day or your standard, how are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, who would like to share out? Is there anyone that would like to talk about something that happened yesterday? Or even if you're just showing a positive motivational YouTube video you found. It can be from that a middle school student actually made, and just show it to the kids. So just to, you know, before you even get started in your lesson, because they're going through it as well mentally with isolation. And like Ashley said, we don't know what type of environment they are in either. But we just have to find a way to kind of meet in the middle as well.
I definitely agree with that.
Social, emotional, and ethical learning has always been something that has been very, very important to me. So are there any tips that you can give to parents to help them with this educational shift that they're experiencing during this pandemic?
Definitely. One would be just to maybe, you know, if they're home and not working, maybe once a week or once a month, maybe just sit by their child, see how the class structure is, be able to see how their schooling is going online, ask questions, participate, just to kind of tune in more into their child's virtual learning setting. I found some success in doing that. The parents like it. I also use some apps to contact parents via text. So a lot of parents are working 2 jobs, 3 jobs. So having that app, they're able to kind of talk to me on a faster basis and kind of check in on their students. So they kind of like that versus a phone call. They're not really able to talk a lot. So just having quicker ways to reach parents and just quick feedback, just letting them know how their child is doing. Those have been successful for me in my virtual setting.
Number one, I will say create some type of learning environment in your home for your child. No matter if it's the kitchen table, if it's the dining room table, wherever you can find a space in your home to create a learning environment for your child, I feel like that is important, because learning can't take place if it's not in a learning environment. You know, when it's time to get up in the morning and start your virtual school day, you don't do it from the bed. Make your child get up as if they're going to school. Whether it's, you know, whether they're in high school, middle school, especially the younger elementary school children, but treat each day like an actual school day. Get up, brush your teeth, wash your face, you know, sit in a chair in an upright position and get ready to learn for the day. Put yourself in that learning mindset so that learning can take place. And I don't want parents to get the misconception, because I know everyone isn't fortunate to have a desk that they bought for the child, or to even have a desk in their room. Some kids do not even have their own room. So that's why I say it's very important that you can find a space in your home wherever and make it a learning environment for your child, because it starts in the home. No matter, you know, no matter what, we can go back into the building all day long, but if the child goes back into the building and still has to go home to a place where learning is not a priority, it's not going to work. So it's very important that you create that learning environment in the home. And even if it isn't a physical space, just you asking, show me what was, you know, your assignments today. What did you learn? Different questions like that. It's also creating a learning environment. You checking in with your child. You trying to see, you know, what took place, or even communicating with their teacher throughout that day. Those type of things contribute to a learning environment in the home. And secondly, it's also get tuned in with your child as far as their social and emotional health as well, because a lot of parents are not tuned in to their children as far as what they are going through. And I know that they're only children, but you have to remember that they are humans as well, and they can't do it by themselves. You know, they have to have some type of accountability system in place, and you are the accountability system. You know, you have to, they need you. So, you know, I hear too many times my middle school parents well, he's old enough, so I pay attention to my baby because she's in elementary school and he's old enough, so he should be able to. No, but he still needs you, especially during this time. Especially during this time. So you gotta remember that as well. Tune into your child's social and emotional health, and also create a learning environment in the home as well. And lastly, educate yourself. You know, there's so many resources out there, free resources available, especially during the pandemic, that you can research and that can be available to your child. There are plenty advocacy groups in the community that are there to support parents, to provide them with the resources that they need during this time. So that is the third thing I'm going to leave with you. Educate yourself so that you can be able to educate your child.
Definitely.
Well, thank you guys. This was a very informative, insightful, and shifting conversation.
Yes.
You know, I love you guys both as educators and as friends. And in creating a more equitable, sustainable, and mindful world, remember that you are in control of your life. So always use the tools that are at your fingertips to school your life. Thank you. Thank you guys.
Today's the best day ever, you're off and on your way. Up and away, yeah. We parlay in the morning, we party throughout the day. Up and away, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Up underlay, yeah. Up and away, yeah.
Yes, sir.
School is like the only way.
School is important in life, you gotta be educated. Go through life with no regrets, cause you regret if you hesitate. And strive to be the best, the obstacles gon' leave you aggravated. But once you succeed, you gon' feel great, you have to celebrate it. You gotta make sure that you treasure it. School and life, forget the nonsense, it's irrelevant. Be what you put your mind to, you could be the president. Greatness you achieve for your people, you gotta
It
represent.
goes up and away, yeah. Today's the best day ever, you're off and on your way. Up and away, yeah. We parlay in the morning, we party throughout the day. Up and away, yeah. Up underlay, yeah. Up and away, yeah. Schooling like the only way. Each day when you wake up, either you're taking intentional steps to being your best self, or you're moving further away from your truth and your goals. There is a difference between being self-focused and self-centered. Value yourself. Love yourself. Hype yourself up because you're dope. It is perfectly okay to be your biggest fan with purpose. Yo, you got this.